Boker Tov. Today's Daf Yomi is Bava Kamma, Pei Gimel, Bava Kamma 83. And today's Daf Yomi is dedicated for a Shmira, for Am Yisrael, for a Salah, for the Shvuyim, for Hashem to watch over the Chayalim serving Am Yisrael at this difficult time. Today's Daf Yomi, we start on the last line of Pei Beis Amud Beis. The Gemara had said there was a dispute between Aristobulus and Hyrcanus, two brothers, and one of them was inside Jerusalem, the other one was outside, and one of them sent they were setting up a sheep every day so the ones inside could bring a korban tamid. But there was a man there who knew Chachmas Yavanis, Greek wisdom, and he said, if you keep sending them the sheep, they're never going to lose. So instead they sent the pig. And when the pig got halfway up, it dug its feet into the wall, and the whole land of Israel shook. And so from there they say, cursed to be the one who teaches his son Greek wisdom. So it says the Gemara, asked the Gemara, v'chachmas Yavanis miyasira. Is Greek wisdom really prohibited? Vatanya, I'm a Rebbe, that Rebbe taught Be'eretz Yisrael, Latan Sursi Lama. Why would you talk Sursi in Israel? She says that Sursi is like a vulgar language, but Tosfos says Sursi is Aramaic. Why would you talk? Rebbe says, why would you talk Sursi in Eretz Yisrael? Lashon HaKodesh, or talk the holy language of Hebrew, or Lashon Yavanis, or talk Greek wisdom, or talk Greek. Why would you talk Sursi? Lama Rabbi Yosef, the Giras has changed to Rabbi Yosef, but Bava Lashon Arami Lama. Why would you talk Aramaic in Babylon? Or Lashon HaKodesh, or Lashon Parsi. You should either talk in Persian or talk in Hebrew. So how could you say, cursed to be the one who teaches his son Greek wisdom, when Rebbe says you should talk Greek wisdom you should talk Greek in Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara says there's a difference. There's a difference in Greek wisdom and the Greek language. The Greek wisdom is no good, but the Greek language is good. And the Gemara asks again, is the Greek wisdom really prohibited? Shimon Gamliel was the son of Rabbi Gamliel, said, Eini ololo nafshi, my eyes are filled with tears. Mikol benos irei, when I remember all the daughters of my town. Elaf yuadim, ayu bebeis abba. There were 1,000 children in my father's household. Chamesh meos mehem lamdu Torah. 500 studied Torah. Chamesh meos lamdu chachmas Yavanis. 500 studied Greek wisdom. One nishtar mehem elani. The only one who's left out of all these 1,000 is me, by the time the persecution was finished. Anikan, I'm here, uben achi abba ba'asya, my cousin's in Asia. And Amri, so we see from here, basically the question is, we see that in Rabbi Gamliel's household, 500 were studying Greek wisdom. So Rabbi Gamliel was the Nasi. If he was doing it, must have been okay. So how is it okay? So they said, no, it's Shani based Rabbi Gamliel, show you Krovim L'Malchus. Rabbi Gamliel's case was different because he had to be in the halls of the kingdom. He was the Nasi. He talked to he met with the Secretary of State. He had to do all these things. So they had to train them to talk to, somebody needs to represent the Jewish people. So therefore it was permitted for them. Kedetanya Masaper Komi. So it says, one who gets a haircut that's called a Comey haircut, this was a haircut that was done in a unique manner. Something was like a mohawk. It was done. That was the way the idolaters did it. And so therefore, it's prohibited. But Avtomas Baru, because what's the reason why it's prohibited? Because this is the prohibition of Chukosei Moselecho. You're not allowed to walk in their ways. Avtumas baruvim hitiru asaper kumi neshu karva malchus. But if Avtumas, they're allowed to get this haircut because he was close to the king. And so we see from here that if you're close to the king, you have a special dispensation to violate the prohibition of chukosehem. And the way the commentaries explain it, this is the rubric of the law, that it doesn't apply for somebody who's close to the king. So too, Rabbi Gamliel's household, they allowed him to talk in Greek wisdom because they were close to the king. We saw that the Brisa said, we learned in the Mishnah that a person is not allowed to raise a dog unless the dog is tied up with a chain. Tan Rabbanan, well, Yigado Adam as a kelav, the Adam came kosher b'shal shalas. A person is not allowed to raise a dog unless it's tied up. You're allowed to raise a dog in a town that's next to Hobbs. If you look over there, you're going to need the next volume of the Gemara. Let me help you. Yeah, right there. Look down. See Bava Kamma 3? Yeah, that's it. Okay, and that's for you, Hobbs. So a person is not allowed to raise his dog unless the dog is tied up with a chain, but he can raise the dog in a city that's close to the border. The kosher bayom matir b'layla. And he tied up by day and release it at night. So many commentaries take this literally, that it's prohibited to own a dog unless you tie it up during the day and release it at night. Now, we're not talking about a dog that's trained to help people. There would clearly be a dispensation, but this would probably be a very unpopular halacha because I think I see a lot of certainly modern Orthodox families owning a dog, and I'm not saying it's prohibited, but I am saying that many commentaries say it's prohibited. I'm sure there are many people who say it's permitted, but many commentaries like the Rambam, like the Marshall, I think we'll look at the Liba de Hilchos at the end, but it seems to be if you're straight reading the Gemara, so you can only own it if it's tied up during the day and open at night as a guard dog. Now, earlier we saw that there was a position that said you're allowed to own a kelav that was a kufri, and maybe it was a very small dog, but that seemed to be in a minority position. So we'll see what the Aliba de Hilchos says at the end of our discussion today. Megado who be okay. Tanya Belazar Gadol Omer Megado Kuavim. We're halfway down the page in 83a. One who raises a dog, Kimegado Chazirim. It's like you raise a pig. So, what's the difference between what Rabbi Eliezer said and what the Tana Kamma says? Gemara says the difference is make him away ba'aror. Whether or not we had said cursed to be the one who raises pigs. So if you raise a dog, are you also cursed? Amar Rav Yosef Parmenyumi, Amar Rav Nachman, Bavel ki'ira smucho saper dami. Since Bavel was such a place, Rashi says, which was settled by a lot of Jews, and they were surrounded by non-Jews, then we're going to view it as the land of Israel for this area. And as on a border town, you can own a dog. And Tergam on Nahardai, they said specifically about Nahardai. So we're in the bottom of 83a. Darish Rabbi Dustai Demit Biri, Uvenucha Yomar. It said when the ark rested, Shuva Hashem Revivos Alfa Yisrael. It says Hashem will return to the 22,000 Jews. So it teaches us that the Shlina rests only when there's 22,000. Of course, we have other Mishnayos in Pirkei Avos. I know what you're thinking. It says the Shlina rests even one person who's studying Torah. Obviously, there are gradations of where the Shlina rests. When there are 22,000 Jews, that's a real high level of the Shlina resting. We had in Washington a gathering 2 months ago where we had a very high amount of Jews, so that the Shlina was resting on us. But let's say you have Chaser Achas. Let's say you're missing one. You have 21,999. You have the pregnant woman amongst them. And this woman would she could give birth, and then she can make it 22,000. But now and the dog barks because they're a miscarry. So this dog, which you owned, barked. It didn't hurt her. It's just barking. Well, you caused it. The Shlina to depart from Israel. Meaning to say, even though the dog doesn't bite, it's still a problem. And the Gemara says, there was a woman, so that she went up to bake in a house, Novach Bakalba, and the dog started barking. Amrullah Mare, so the master of the dog said, Lotus Dafi Mine, don't worry about this dog, Shakui Nive. I already removed the teeth. Amrullah, she said to him, Shkui tu Vusayach Veshaja Achizri, take your favor that you've done for me and throw it on the thorns. Kfar Nad Vlad, I already lost my baby. Meaning to say, the fact that you don't think your dog can hurt, or even you know your dog can't hurt, isn't enough if the dog causes pain and fright to this woman, caused her to miscarry. Ein portion nishav and leonim. You're not allowed to spread out. You're not allowed to spread out nets to catch the doves unless it's 30 resin away from the town, so you don't catch a dove that doesn't belong to you. Gemara says with 30 wrists is 8 mil, which is each mil is 3/4 of a mile, so it's like 6 miles. Can the dove really go so far? We say you have a dove coat. That's where they used to like build these huts for the doves or these coops for the doves to stay in. You have to only put that 50 amos from the city, so that that the doves don't destroy the crops. And Amar Abaya, Meshet Shaiti Tuva. Yeah, Abaya says, yeah, they can fly up to 8 mil, 30 ris, but they only eat within 50 amos. But Karsaya b'chamisha amamalya, but they fill themselves up within 50 amos. Gemara says, Umeshat Shloshim ris v'sulo. Do they only fly 30 ris? But Tanya b'yishuv, that if you're in a place where there are a lot of people living, don't even spread it out within 100 miles. 100 mil, 75 miles. They'll spread it out. So Rav Yosef Amar B'Yushav Kramim, they were talking about a place of vineyards. They can fly from one vineyard to the other and thereby go a very great distance. The Rabbah says B'Yushav Shofchen. There are a lot of dovecotes around. Typically, Mishum Shofchen Gufayel. If that's the case, don't put down your nets because you might catch it from all these. You're close to the shofchen, the dovecotes. You buy a same of dove with kachavim, you buy a same of the hefker, you buy a same of the ditei. So one position is that it's the idolater, one position is those are ownerless birds, and the other position it was your birds, it was your dovecotes, and that's how they could go very far away. Hadranawach, Meruba, we'll return to Meruba. Just want to check before we go on to the next chapter called Achovel. What they say in the Aliba de Hilpasa in the back of my Mishas, my Mesifta Shas, what do they say about owning a dog? Let's see what they say. Let's see what they say. So 83a, let's just see what they say here. Hold on. Okay, here we go. 83a. They don't bring it down. They don't bring it down here. So that's maybe a sign that they don't think it's something that we have halacha ma'isa anymore today. But others do. So I'll have to look into that more. Look into that more and see what they say. Okay. Okay, so now we go on. So we're up to the next chapter. The next chapter is called Hachovel. Hachovel means to wound, and there's a prohibition from the Torah to wound another person. So we say Hachovel b'chavero. Let's say somebody, Rahman al wounds his friend. Chayiv alav mishum chamishad dvarim. You're liable. You're responsible for 5 types of damages that you have to pay. Nezek, that's the actual damage. Tsar, the pain. Ripoy, medical expenses. Sheves, lost wages, which is in addition to the damages. We'll see what that means. Boshas, humiliation. What does it mean, benezek, the damages? Ketzad, what does it mean? Simas eno, katas yado, shivers rago, rona sokilu heaven, nimkar b'shuk, v'sham kama yafa, kama yafa. So let's say somebody's eye is knocked out, or his hand, or his leg is broken. We look at him as though he was an eved, if he would be a slave sold in the marketplace. How much was he worth before, and how much is he worth now? What's his depreciation? What type of slave are we talking about here? An eved Kanani or an eved Ivri? That's a machlokas, but most say it's an Evet Kanani. Tsar, the pain, koavo b'shpud. Let's say somebody struck him with a hot iron, or mismar, or a hot nail. A al porno, even though a nail is a place where it doesn't affect your ability to work. It's just painful. Makom sheino sechabura. It's not a wound. Omdim kama adam kayotze bazerotel itol mitzdarkach. You look at how much a person would be willing to take to feel this pain. The Gemara is going to obviously discuss this case, but the commentaries discuss, are we evaluating the pain at the moment? But lots of times there's pain after the fact. So which pain are we looking at? Ripoy, what is medical expenses? Hiko chayev oraposo. Let's say you strike him, you have to heal him. All about smachim. Let's say you got blisters. Imach masamake. If they came from the wound, chayev, then you have to heal them. Shlomach masamake. But if they're not from the wound, potter. Chayasav v'nistera. Let's say the wound was healed and then it regressed. Chayasav v'nistera. It regressed again. Chayev oraposo. You have to pay for the healing. Chayasa kol tzarcho. Let's say it was completely healed. Eino chayev oraposo. You don't have to heal it. Sheves, what are lost wages? So the Mishnah basically, I'll say it outside first and then we'll read it. You already paid for his depreciation. You already paid. If, let's say, he was a hedge fund manager and now you gave him a brain traumatic injury, you say, okay, you lost, let's say, net worth, you lost your income. A hedge fund manager is making $30 million a year, and now you're making $100 a year. So you've lost that value. But so he's already paid that under damages. So what's the lost wages? So now he can't work at all. So shomer kishuin. Now we look at him as though he's a cucumber salesman. So you already gave him the payment for his hands and his legs, but now he would have been able, at this point, while he's recovering, he could work to watch the squash, to make sure nobody steals the squash. Will work. So that you have to pay. And Boshes, humiliation, everything goes according to the one who does the embarrassing and the one who's embarrassed. And so, okay, meaning to say, that's subjective. So the Gemara first asks the fundamental question, and we're going to try to bring 9 proofs for the following question. Why do we say you pay money if you knock out somebody's eye? Am I ayin tachas ayin? Isn't it an eye for an eye? So the Torah, Amar Rahman Torah says an eye for an eye. So why do you pay money? Ema ayin mamish. Maybe it's an actual eye. That's the Gemara's question. The Gemara is going to give 9 approaches, but the Gemara obviously doesn't give the Vilna Gaon's answer. Vilna Gaon says ayin tachas ayin, an eye, and the word tachas literally means underneath an eye. An eye underneath an eye. But if you take the letters ayin, what's underneath the ayin? The letter pei. What's underneath the letter yud? Chaf. And what's underneath the letter nun? Samach. Spells kesef. So ayin tachas ayin, the Vilna Gaon says, is money, kesef. So ayin mamish. Don't say actual eye. Titania. The first approach. How do we know an eye for an eye doesn't mean an actual eye? Because it says Yachol simas eino misames eino kates yado mekates yado shibers rago mishabers rago. I might think if you blind his eye that that if Reuven blinds Shimon's eye, Reuven's eye is blinded, or Reuven's hand is chopped off, or if he breaks his leg, Reuven's leg is broken. So it says in the Torah, and we'll see. There's 2 verses that say this. We'll have to see which one. It says if one strikes an animal, a human, or one strikes an animal. Just like you strike an animal, it means you have to pay the owner of the animal. So too, if you strike a person with tashlumin, you pay the person. You don't lose your hand or your eye or your leg. And then the Brisa says, and if you want to say that that's not good enough, there's another verse. That if you kill a person, you're not allowed to pay a ransom that you're put to death. If you're wicked, you die. It means for killing somebody, you can't pay a ransom. The person can take a ransom. If he has limbs that were chopped off that will not go back, he can take money for that. So the Gemara says, wait, 1 second. Hi Maka, when it says Maka Adam Maka Beima, you compare the striking of a person to a striking of an animal, just like an animal is money, so to a person is money. Which Maka is this? There's two verses that refer to the Maka. If you want to say it's from the verse that appears in Leviticus 24:21, where it says Maka Beima Yishalmena. It says if you strike an animal, you have to pay. Maka Adam, you must, and if you strike a human, you put to death. That verse is referring to where you kill the person, and there's no payment there. So that can't be the source. El Mehacha. So it's from a different verse in Vayikra. It says, Leviticus 24:18, it says in the pasuk, Makeh nefesh behema yishalmena nefesh tachas nefesh. It says if you strike an animal, you have to pay a soul for a soul. And right next to it, it says the pasuk, if you put a wound on a person, just like it was done, he should be done to him. So that's how we compare a striking of an animal to the striking of a man. But the Gemara says it can't be that that's what the price is referring to. I love makahu. There it doesn't say the word maka. It says v'chitei mum. It says the Gemara says haka kamina. No, we're comparing the striking. Just like the animal is referring to. When you strike him, you pay him. So too, the striking by the human, it means you have to pay money. Gemara says it can't be. But it says, there's another verse which states, in Leviticus 24:17, if any man will strike a person, he shall be put to death. Where there it says, it doesn't mean put to death, it means b'mamon. Means he has to pay money. Gemara says, how do you know that? How do you know it means with money? Ema b'misa, mamish. Maybe it means he's actually put to death. The Gemara says, no, don't say that. Don't say that. First of all, because it's compared to striking an animal where you pay money. And also it says afterwards, just like you put affliction in a person, so too will be this affliction. So that proves that it's money that you give to the person if you knock out his wound and not your wound, not your limbs. Gemara says, Umayim nafshachomar. So why does the Brisa need two psukim? And the second pasuk was not about Makkah, but it was about that you can't take ransom for killing a person, for a murder, but you can take ransom for a wound. So Gemara says, Suka kashu atana, because the Brisa, the author of the Brisa was still bothered. My causes the yolaf mi maka behema. Why would we say that you should compare it to the word maka to striking an animal where it says maka behema, where it says about striking an animal maka behema yishamena? Why don't we compare it to striking a person? You must. Why do we compare it to an animal? Compare it to a person. My cause is so Gemara says, no, that's not a question. Amri done in Nezikin. We should compare damages to damages. Vein done in Nezikin misa. And don't compare damages to death. So, meaning to say, better to compare it to an animal, because that's talking about a case of Nezikin of damages and not a human, which is talking about being put to where you killed somebody. Gemara says, done in Adam, just the opposite. Compare a case of a person to another case of a person. Vein done Adam me behema. So, and don't compare a person to the actions on an animal. Gemara says, and for this reason, and that's why you have the second verse, which says, if you want to say, which means for a nefesh rotzeach, if you kill somebody, then ransom cannot be given. But you can take a ransom for limbs that will not grow back. And so the Gemara says, and this idea that you can't take a ransom for a nefesh rotzeach, is it coming to exclude this pasuk of lo tichlu kofar nefesh rotzeach is coming to exclude that you can't take, that you're supposed to pay a ransom if you knock out somebody's limbs. Don't we need it to tell us the Amar Rachmana law of a Beit Tarta? Isn't it Torah? Don't we need the pasuk to tell us that the Torah is saying you can't do two things? Lo tishkol minei mamon, utikatle. Isn't it to teach us that you can't kill him and also take a payment for it? The Gemara says, no, michte rishaso nafka. That idea that you don't kill him and also take money from the guy who did the murder, now we learn out from the pasuk that says rishaso. That you give him one punishment and not two. But still, don't we need it to come? Don't we need to teach us the idea that the person can pay his way out of the murder, meaning that he killed somebody and just going to buy his way out of punishment? Isn't that what it's teaching us? Gemara says no. Because then it would say the pasuk could have been written: you can't take a ransom for somebody who's wicked to die. L'nefesh rotzeach. Why does it need to say l'nefesh rotzeach? Shema mino l'nefesh rotzeach yatel keach kofar. So the words l'nefesh rotzeach tell us you don't take a ransom penalty for somebody who killed somebody, but you can take it for the Rashi Avarim that don't grow back, for the limbs. So since we have the pasuk that says you can't take a ransom, why do we need another pasuk to tell us? Why do we need another pasuk to tell us that just you compare striking an animal to striking a man? So the Gemara says, Amri, if we just had the pasuk of what tichul kofer and nefesh ritzeach, then Havamina, I might have said, Ibai eno neisiv, Ibai dmei eno neisiv. I might have thought the person has the ability to give either the value of his eye or his actual eye. The choice is up to the person. Kamash one, we see from here, so therefore we have to say also from an animal that we compare it to an animal. Just like an animal is with money, so to this case, the punishment is only with money. And that's exactly how we learn it. So this is the first proof that we're saying ayin tachas ayin means money and not giving your actual eye. All right, we'll stop here. If anyone has any questions.